Hey guys, Jesse from PS4Daily.com here, and today we're taking a look at a highly anticipated title, one that Final Fantasy fans, and even not Final Fantasy fans, have been looking forward to for years on years on years. Yes, we are finally taking a look at Final Fantasy 15, or at least the episode Duscae demo that was included with the first run copies of Final Fantasy Type 0, another highly anticipated Final Fantasy game. One thing to note is that you can get this for the next 2 months on PSN, the demo and the game. So if you guys want to get it after this, but you don't want to go out to your Walmart or your Amazon or your Best Buy or whatever retailer you usually buy your video games at, just head on over to your local PlayStation Network store, region, whatever, and purchase it from there. So yeah, let's get right into it. So Final Fantasy Type 0 follows a team of 4 best friends, one of them being a prince, I believe, as they try to do something. Yeah, see, on paper, this sounds like an episode of Boy Meets World, which, me being a Boy Meets World lover, I would love that, but unfortunately it doesn't translate too well in the demo. Now, again, I want to stress the fact that this is a demo. This is not the complete product, obviously, as that has not yet come out yet, and so it translating not too well in the demo doesn't really say as much for the whole product in general. We could have complete different opinions once the game actually comes out. Right now, the whole best friend dynamic, which should be a really good thing in theory, doesn't really translate too well to the demo because you don't get too much actual interaction from them in the story elements. Now, I want to say an hour and a half to 2 hours into the demo itself. I've done a few things here and there. I progressed a little bit on with the story, which involves you trying to raise money to about 23,000 or 25,000 gil to help repair your car, the same car you see in the Final Fantasy 15 trailers, you know, the one that they're all cruising around and all happy and stuff. But yeah, basically you're trying to raise money to fix that up, or at least get Sydney to fix it up. And so, in order to do that, you have to go complete a bounty. Now, this bounty involves hunting down a very large creature whose name I can't remember. Now, actually hunting down this creature involves you tracking down the thing, going and finding its tracks within the woods and within this vast world of the episode Duscae demo, which in itself is slightly interesting, but it gets stale really, really fast. But I said I'm an hour and a half into it, but I should be a lot longer into it. And now, as I said earlier, this comes along with Type 0 as well, a game that I wasn't really anticipating. I was more hyped up for Final Fantasy 15 itself than I was for Type 0. I basically bought this specifically for Final Fantasy 15. I was incredibly close to paying nearly $30 to try this demo out a day early. That's how much I want to play this, because it looked amazing. It's an action RPG. I love action RPGs, and yet it's not really a fun action RPG. It's one that gets really old and really stale really quickly, and that's really unfortunate, to be honest. Okay, so yeah, that's the story, or at least the bare bones of it. You can also do some side quests here and there, which involve looking after some chocobo and going to explore a cavern, which in turn gets you a summon, which you've probably heard about but you might not have seen. If you're looking into actually playing this demo, I recommend that you don't look into that summon itself. Just go into the demo blind, do the quest, get the summon, then use it, which takes forever to use because these enemies do not want to kill you when you actually want them to. But yeah, actually using the summon, oh my god, it's impressive. Which brings us to the graphics. I know we're tackling graphics before gameplay. Odd, but whatever. So yeah, graphics in Final Fantasy 15 are no slouch. They're about as good as you would expect them to be for a current generation title. They look beautiful, and when I say beautiful, I mean beautiful. The weather effects, the lightning, the night, the daybreak, all of that is absolutely beautiful. Sometimes I like just standing there and looking at all the monsters as they run around, do their own thing, and just taking in the scenery. That's kind of the good thing about Final Fantasy 15. But again, the whole scenery aspect is a double-edged sword. because unfortunately you have to traverse through that scenery. Now, if you've seen the original Final Fantasy 15 demos, or not demos, but the trailers, or even any of the trailers since then, you would have a general idea that Noctis, the game's protagonist and the only character within your party of 4 that you can actually play as, can use a warp ability with his sword or with his weapon. Now he lobs it over, and think what is it? Naruto's father from the Naruto series. Like Naruto's father, he lobs his weapon and he teleports to his destination with that weapon. It's a mechanic that works really, really well in combat, although it's a limited mechanic because it requires mana points to use, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so theoretically this would be really, really great for traversing environments, getting from point A to point B really, really quickly, except you can't use that outside of combat. You cannot use the teleportation that you're given outside of combat, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I understand that it uses MP, but I would love it if I were given the free reign to use it if I pleased. There are plenty of ways to regain your mana, whether that's engaging combat with a creature or downing a potion or two. There are plenty of ways to regain mana, and yet you're not able to use this handy ability for a very handy purpose, which makes actually getting from one destination to the next within the Type 0 or the Final Fantasy 15 episode Duscae demo a chore. And that's part of what makes this demo so boring, and I hated, I absolutely hated hunting down that beast, and I hated looking for all of doing side quests and going from point A to point B because it took so long, even if I was running, because eventually Noctis would get tired and he would huff and puff and he'd go back to walking and walking and walking, and then you could run again. So that's cool, but no. Yeah, getting from point A to point B takes way too long in this game, and I really wish that there was a way to actually use your warp ability outside of combat. That would be great, and it would make getting from place to place not as taxing, but something that's really important to consider, and something that's really important that I wish that they would kind of fine tune. At least let us play as chocobos. Chocobos might actually be writable in the demo. I probably haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm not exactly sure yet. But yeah, so that's a chore, a really big chore. What else? The other thing that makes getting from point A to point B a chore is the actual combat. Now, at first I was really impressed by the combat. It kind of has some depth in there. So you're introduced to the Type 0 or the Final Fantasy 15 combat system with a simple tutorial. Now, when I say simple, I really do mean simple. You're going to find out a lot more of the combat actually engaging in it outside of the tutorial, but basically the tutorial teaches you how to warp, how to parry, how to counter, and how to attack. That's basically it. And so when you get down, your buddies can revive you, or you can revive your buddies when they get down as well. But once you only have a pretty decent sized length of window of opportunity to get yourself revived or revive your buddies until it's game over. But yeah, so actual combat. So as you guys might have seen in the trailers, Noctis has a variety of weapons he can choose from. A variety being 4. I think a sword, 2 lances, and then this great swordish thing. Now each of these items has different attributes. So the sword allows you to regain mana, and I think it negates some armor, or it does something with that. One of the 2 lances allows you to just regain mana, while the other one's more of the sword, but I kind of like to think of it as a more powerful sword. And then the great sword just negates the enemy's armor. It doesn't allow you to regain mana. So it's kind of important at first to switch between weapons whilst you're engaging in combat, because you are going to be using the dodge mechanic, which allows Noctis to kind of shimmy his way out of enemy attacks, which in turn uses mana and warping uses mana, and obviously your skills themselves use mana. So it's kind of important to kind of maintain or manage your mana pool. There's a little bit of micromanaging that goes on there, but at the same time, this goes from being important to being not so important because you have the sword, which does a decent amount of damage and allows you to maintain a good amount of mana as well. I went from actively switching back and forth between weapons in the middle of combat to just using my sword in general because there was no point. I didn't really see a point in switching weapons. So you're gonna see in this video the actual weapon switching mechanic. So to do that, you want to press the touchpad, which will bring up a menu. Then from the menu you go to weapons. Then you're gonna have a list of all 4 of your skills. So you're gonna have your there's a spinning attack, there's a jumping attack, and there's some other skills in there as well. And then to your right, which is not explained in the tutorial, you're gonna have your actual attack patterns. There's the melee barrage, which comes into play when you hold down the attack button. There's the initial strike, which is the strike you do when you first initiate combat. There's the finishing move, and there's the parrying move. Different weapons can be assigned to each of these actions. So I could have the starter move be my sword, the melee barrage be one lance, the parry move be the great sword, and then the other move be the other lance. Or I think I can use one item for all 4 slots. There's some leeway in there, and that's good because it does show that there's more to Final Fantasy 15's combat mechanic that meets the eye, but at the same time, it becomes, again, bland and unnecessary when you figure out that you don't really need to switch from the sword, and that's a problem that I'd like to see addressed by the time Final Fantasy 15 actually comes out. So yeah, that's really something I didn't like, and that kind of contributed to the game being really, really boring because I kept doing the same things over and over and over again. And I would switch weapons, not because I actually needed to within combat situations, but because I didn't want to be bored. And that's not good at all. So yeah, that's really something that needs to be addressed before the game's final release date. And from the looks of it, Square Enix is really taking fan feedback to heart with this. They're doing surveys and they're actually looking for feedback from the fans. So that's good. It shows that they're willing to change up certain mechanics or maybe even whole chunks of the game entirely to create the best product they can, which they should be really focused on doing because this game has been on people's minds for years now. And I mean, if it's not a good game, people are not going to be happy. And this game has so much potential. I'm just looking at it and I'm like, well, this game could be so much more. But right now it's not. And so instead of playing Final Fantasy 15 for hours and hours on end, I'm over here playing Type 0 for 7 hours so far and having so much more fun with that because it has the same general ideas in there, but way better executed. It's a much more entertaining game. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say about Final Fantasy 15 Episode Duscae demo. If you guys already played it, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below, either on this video or in the article itself. I'm Jesse with PS4Daily.com, and here's some more of the Final Fantasy 15 Episode Duscae demo.
How come I always end up in these situations?
We must be prepared for anything.
Everybody, stay alert!
Hey, Noct! Check this out!
We can slip through.
Let's go in.
Tight squeeze.
Might just make it through. I think I'm hyperventilating.
Quiet now.
What? Where? Who? What?
I didn't need to see that.
Whoopsie!
Gotcha! That's where you swing that thing! You're on fire today!
What can I say?
Thanks now!
All's well that ends well.
Well, put it in the books.
Onward.
We could crawl through.
Don't lose your head.
All right.
Easy as they come.
Let's clean them up quick.
The Prince of Pain! Gotcha! Shut up! Hey! Where'd you learn that one, Knock? Slow and steady. Thanks now. Gotcha! Thanks now. Gotcha! Brilliant. Not that here. One last slice to finish them off.
Yes, sir.
That's all she wrote.
It never ends.
Hey!
Highness, all right?
Yep. Thanks now. You're on fire today.
What can I say?
Hey!
None the worse for wear.
No muss, no fuss.
Makes me sick just looking at him. Start bitching, start killing.
Gotcha! Thanks now! The Prince of Pain!
Here goes nothing!
Your time has come.
Oh yeah!
Hey, I can't hear you! Gotcha!
Sweet!
Go! Thanks now!
Farewell.
Hey, Prompto. Now keep your feet steady.
Gotcha! Brilliant!
No big deal.
Look out behind!
Not the time for horseplay!
Didn't mean to do that.
Thanks now! Next
did you expect?
Hey, gotcha! None the worse for wear.
No muss, no fuss.
We can slip through.
Let's go in.
Slow down a sec. Whoopsie.
Stay down!
Extraordinary, Gladiator.
What did you expect?
Gotcha! Hands down! Hey! Going for it! Hands down! Gotcha! Hands now!
Never miss.
Gotcha! Hands now! Gotcha! Hands now! Gotcha! Hands now! Gotcha! Smashing! Hands now! Gotcha! Hands now!
Outstanding, Highness.
No use hanging around here.
Slow down a sec.
Hey, I can't hear you! This way! Are you okay? Hey, I can't hear you!
That's it! I quit! What the hell are we doing here? Snakes! Why did it have to be snakes? Thing tried to drag me on! Not cool, not cool, not cool!
Gotcha! This way! Hands
Where's it getting harder to see?
Stop bitching, start killing.
Stay vigilant.
Not going down that easy.
Gotcha!
Going for it! Sweet!
Hands down! Hey, where'd you learn up and at it?
Don't forget
You like that?
Gotcha! Stay alive.
Glad you were there. Is it just me? Or is it getting harder to
Right. Here we are. Yeah.
Easy as they come.
Hey, Knock! Check this out!
Watch where you swing that! Hey! Pathetic!
What is this place?
Don't do anything I would.
Same to you.
Hands down! Must say I'm amazed.
What can I say? He was hanging around here.
Smell that?
Damn!